Hi, this video is all about watercolor techniques. We'll have a demonstration of how to do some of the different watercolor techniques, and then we'll look at some artists who use watercolor as their medium. So this first video is all about gradients. So this is one way of doing a gradient. You can preload your paper, which is in this case Canson paper, which is 300 GSM, and I'm pre-wetting the paper. I'm then using some of the watercolor discs and I'm loading up the paint now. You can see that it's fading across. So a gradient should be fading from one color to another. The one color basically should have one side darker, one side much lighter. If you don't preload the paper with water, you can do the darker color first, wash out your brush, and then have the watercolor fading across like that. You can still see a dark side and a light side. You can use an aqua brush. So an aqua brush is one that you can fill up with water. You can see that that's quite a lot of paint pigment just there. And I'm just squeezing the brush and it's coming across. So we are getting the dark to light. You can see because of so much pigment being on that brush, we can do a second one quite easily. You can also blot with how much excess is there and lift off with tissue. Sometimes it's quite nice to have the tissue as a technique within your watercolor. Sometimes people just like to lift off the colors, particularly with staining colors. The next part is doing a gradient again. We're going to do the one color gradient. Just putting some more water onto my brush. This is two color gradient, so we're going from one color into another, and I have kind of done that wrong. So I've gone the darker color first. It's more successful if you have a lighter color first, and then add your second color next. So now we're looking more at the gradients and doing it properly. So we're going the lighter color first. So I've loaded up the yellow on one brush. I'm now loading the other brush up with the blue with a two color gradient. Obviously we're getting that third color in the middle. So blue and yellow equals green. And in that case, we've got the gradient clearly along. What we're going to do now is load up with a lot of water with our pigment. And we're going to add cling wrap over the top of it. This is a really cool technique to use if you're after a certain effect. It has to have a lot of water on there. So you can see on that particular example, you can see the little divots being shown. So this is actually showing that it is activated. You need to leave it there until it's dry. So two color gradient, we're going the purple and the yellow. Is going a little bit muddy, but this one is also going to have cling wrap over the top. So you can see it goes a lot darker where it's activated. And we want to leave that until it's completely dry. So loading it up with water, in this case using a purple, lots and lots of water, and we're going to use rock salt. The rock salt is going to be put over the top and it's going to activate within the water. You can see already that it is changing the effect. Again, these techniques you do need to use quite a lot of water within it, so it actually does do the effect. This is just normal salt, so the smaller salt, rock salt, is obviously a little bit bigger. This last one that we're loading up, lots of water, we're going to put rice. So rice can give a really cool effect as well. Next technique is splat. So you probably want to make sure that you're splatting away from anything else. You probably wouldn't be splatting over the top of a final artwork. You probably want to take it over to the sink, but it can give some really cool effects. The next one we're loading up with heavy pigment with a bit of water, getting a straw, and we're just blowing it around the place, which gives a really cool effect as well. Is a little bit random where it spirals out, but if you're after a randomly kind of look, it can give you a good look. So this is fan brush. So fan brushes are great for giving different effects. It's great for foliage in trees. Can also be good with, I guess, water as well. You can load it up with different colours. You can certainly layer it when it's dry and put something over the top of it, but it can give a really cool effect. Masking fluid. So masking fluid kills brushes. So we have certain brushes that we use for masking fluid. It is like a latex. It has quite a strong smell. It has a child lock on it, so it doesn't easily open up. It goes on quite white. You can see I've done a little bit of a shape there that I'm just painting with this particular masking fluid. It doesn't wash very well either, so you can see that that brush over here is a little bit nasty looking. It's just what happens with those brushes. So to show you what it can look like, so that particular one has the masking fluid taken off, and you can see the difference. This one is dry, this one is not. So when it's dried, it goes that sort of yellowy colour, and it does it like a resist, so you can go over the top of it. You can't remove the masking fluid until it's completely dry, like the paint that you're putting over the top of it. But when you do, it basically reveals a white part of your work. So here's one that is dry. It's got the paint already over the top. So all we're going to do is remove it. You can kind of roll your fingers over the top of it, or you can peel it off. It does come off like latex, but basically wherever you put that masking fluid will block the paint. It does have a bit of a time limit, so you can't leave it on for ages. In fact, the pot of masking fluid goes off within 6 months of opening, but it can be really a good thing to know about, basically. All right, so here's some examples of dried work. So you can see we've got the one colour gradients at the top, from the fading from the dark to the light. We've got blending of two colours, and this particular one is giving us some cauliflowers, or what we call halos. These are some cling wrap examples. Sandpaper is a technique that's in watercolour books, but I've actually never seen an artist use it within their work. You're basically painting a square. When it's dry, you go over the top of it with sandpaper. White gel pen, we've got a lot of artists that use white gel pen over the top of their watercolours. It can give some really interesting effects. These are some dried fan brush examples, really great foliage. The old splat and straw can be really interesting with their effects. So these are what the salt and rice look like. Once they're dry, you basically just pick it up and you roll it over into a bin. All the salt or the rice comes off. Can give some really interesting effects, and that's a blotting tissues example. So some watercolour artists. So most masters of art or historical artists have used watercolour in their work. So even Van Gogh, you've got Namatjira from Australia in there too. And then you've got some contemporary artists that have also used watercolour with their work. In some cases, they're putting the white gel pen over the top of it, or felt tip pen. But watercolour is a really great, versatile media to use, and it's one of my favourites. Hope you enjoyed this.